Hey everybody, welcome to Economist. So this video is about answering your guys' questions. All of the questions that I'm going to be answering today are things that I've seen on videos of mine, and most of them come from my previous Porsche video, which was about why buying a Porsche Cayman like this one might be the perfect car for you. And I asked in that video to tell me if you have any other questions that I didn't cover, and this is kind of a follow-up to that, and answering some other questions that I've heard from other prospective Cayman buyers. So it's a little bit windy out here, so I'm going to take you guys inside so I don't get too much audio interference. So the first comment I want to address is probably the most common question that I get. I'm considering buying a used Cayman like yours, but I'm worried that the cost of maintenance will make me end up paying a fortune. So for me, maintenance isn't too bad. A quick caveat, I own this car to drive it and use it as just a regular car. A lot of people think that to afford a car like this, you should be able to keep it in showroom quality. I disagree. I love it when I see other sports cars on the road that are in good running condition but look like they've really been used, because that's how I like to use mine. That being said, I've probably spent about $1,000 to $2,000 a year over the past 2 years on maintenance items. So that includes everything from brake pads to oil changes to windshield wipers to general cleaning and tires. The most expensive thing being the tires by far. I probably could have spent less if I did my work outside of the dealership, but I'm a bit of a sucker and I really like my local dealership, so I've gone to the dealership for all of mine. I know that I'm getting screwed over a little bit on price, but at the end of the day, for my first 2 years of owning a Porsche, I thought it was best to go to the dealer, talk to them, really get a lot of detail. They've done a great job of telling me what they're doing and why they're doing it, and I really appreciate that. Oil changes can be expensive because the car does take a lot of oil. However, you only have to do it every 20,000 miles, which is what Porsche recommends. And that's not that often. I've only done one oil change since I've bought this car, and I've driven it almost 20,000 miles now. It had been about 10,000 miles since the previous owner did an oil change, so I've got about 10,000 miles more to go on my current amount of oil. Admittedly, I'm also very lucky that this car has been super reliable for me. I made a whole video about all the issues my Cayman has had, and at the end of the video, there's really not that much. Manufacturer-caused issues have not really been a problem with this vehicle. I think the worst thing to fail has been this headliner. Everything else has been great, and I mean the headliner doesn't affect the performance anyways. My income right now allows me to afford to keep this car running smoothly, allows me to drive it as much as I want, which is basically on the weekends and when I have a little bit of time off work, and that's good enough for me. It would probably be financially irresponsible for me to start doing a lot of modifications and aesthetic changes and things like that, so I'm okay with a few imperfections on this vehicle if it allows me to afford to own it and drive it. So that answers the question why I haven't done any major modifications to this vehicle. I also have found that modifications more often than not seem to cause as many issues as they do increase the fun of driving the vehicle, and I'm not really willing to take that risk yet. I think this vehicle is super fun, super good looking just the way it is, and I don't really feel the need to do any modifications. If I had a higher income, maybe I would do an exhaust system that allows me to get a little bit more noise when I want it, but at the end of the day, I probably wouldn't use it that often anyways. Some people are saying, I would love to own a Porsche Cayman, but what about the insurance costs? That's a really good question. Unfortunately, it's hard to say exactly how much insurance is going to cost you because there's so many different variables. I've been paying more in insurance actually than I have been in maintenance, and that's because up until recently I was under 25, I had a speeding ticket within the last 3 years, and I'm male. All those things combined leads to high insurance for a two-seater sports car. Before, I was paying about $1,300 to $1,400 for every 6 months of insurance. Now I'm over 25, I'm still male, but my speeding ticket is farther in the past. I moved to a state that no longer has no-fault insurance, and so my insurance is a little bit cheaper. Now I'm under $1,000. So that's relatively affordable for a car like this, although obviously it's going to be cheaper if you get a cheaper car, or if you're smart and don't get any speed tickets. Next question. Would you prefer a base or an S, and why? Well, I would prefer the base, and that's because that's what I can afford right now. I've never actually driven the S, but if I did, maybe I could be convinced if I also had the budget to back it up. However, everything I've read and heard, it seems like the base Cayman has everything that the S does, just a little bit less power. And for me, the most fun thing about this car is the way it handles, and I don't think you'd get that much of a difference in an S. Now, if you're to upgrade to something like a GTS, then yes, but between this and an S, I'm quite happy with just the regular. What is the deal with the intermediate shaft IMS bearing causing catastrophic engine failure? I honestly cannot find a straight answer on this. That being said, the Porsche dealer says this vehicle is totally fine. There were no issues that Porsche has admitted to yet with the 2007 base Cayman. Some forums disagree and say that there is still a risk in this engine, but I haven't seen any actual anecdotes that are describing a big engine explosion the way that some of the 996 Carreras and some of the Boxsters have experienced. Next comment I want to address. You're always going to be wishing you had the S every time a Mustang comes at you, right? Which his girlfriend has. Her Mustang has to be faster than the base Cayman. Well, there's some truth to that, actually. My Cayman has a 0 to 60 time listed as 5.8 from the manufacturer. Porsche tends to sandbag their times a little bit, so maybe it's more like 5.6 or 5.7. But new EcoBoost Mustang with the 10-speed automatic transmission, which is what my girlfriend drives, has an under 5 second 0 to 60 time. So in a straight line, her car is faster than mine. However, if there's any kind of curves or anything that's like a track, I guarantee the Cayman's going to beat it. It has much better handling, it's a much smaller package, it's lighter, and with the manual transmission you have much better control over which gear you're in. And that means it's much easier to shift from, say, fourth down to second in the Cayman than it is in the Mustang. The Mustang transmission is fine, but since it's 10 speed, it shifts a lot, and the handling isn't quite Porsche level. So while the Mustang technically is faster, I would actually argue that the Cayman feels faster. Because in everyday driving, when you have the manual transmission and you're going around curves and things like that, the Cayman is going to feel a little bit faster. Next question, is the Cayman rare? Well, not that I really care that much about how rare my car is, but at the end of the day, the Cayman's rareness comes down to how you define rare. It is probably the least common of the modern Porsches out there. So if you consider 911s, Cayennes, Panameras, Boxsters, and Caymans, then the Cayman is the least common out there. You'll see more of those other ones on the road than you will see Caymans. That makes sense though, since the Cayman is also the youngest of those models. It's only been around since the mid-2000s. So, yes, it's less common, but I honestly wouldn't call it a rare car. You'll see them pretty frequently. So this is a good follow-up. It's not a question, but it's an interesting comment from E-Unit. The places where I see Caymans are not in the posh rich people or really rich people area, but in the trendier hipster areas in the city. I see way more 911s in general, and especially in the posh suburbs. So that's actually a point that I agree with, especially in the United States. A Cayman is an entry-level Porsche, kind of like the Boxer, but it does have a bit more of a hipster reputation than the Boxer. The Boxer's been around a little bit longer. It's a little bit less of a niche since the convertible is more popular right now. So if you're in an American city, you're probably going to see Caymans more amongst people like me, which are young professionals, no kids yet, living in the city, and more in the rich suburbs with big McMansions and things like that. That's where you're going to see the 911s. In Europe, I think it's a bit of a different story. I see lots of really nice Caymans in the posh London neighborhoods like St. John's Wood, Primrose Hill, South Kensington, Knightsbridge, places like that. You actually see a lot of Caymans. And I would argue that's because those people are buying them new or leasing them. And London has narrower streets, as does most of Europe, than the United States. So it makes a little bit more sense to buy a Cayman than a 911, because the 911's actually a little bit fat these days. A Cayman is closer to the size of an old 911 than the current 911 is. So that's why if you're in London, you're likely to see a lot of older 911s and a lot of Caymans. Now, don't get me wrong. New 911s are quite ubiquitous. There's a lot of money going around. But the Cayman is more common, especially in Germany too. In Germany, it's a common daily driver car. You'll see a lot of lawyers and doctors and business people and engineers driving them because it is a great daily car, especially if you live in a more tight-knit city that you'll find in a place like Germany or London or Paris or whatever. Here's a funny one. Next time, do a car review shirtless. If not shirtless, then tight-fitting shorts. Hey, if I get enough requests, maybe I'll do that. What do you think about getting a Cayman as a first car? In parentheses, money is not an issue. I say go for it. If money's not an issue, you really can't go wrong with a Porsche Cayman. How come you have red brake calipers on a base 987? I literally have no idea. I've been looking into this, and I looked through the history, and I can't really find anything that specifies when these red brake calipers got on this car. I think they look really cool, and I'd be interested to find out how they got on there, but so far looking through the history and things like that, I haven't been able to quite figure out why they're there, but I like them, and I'm going to keep them. AR Utility says, hey man, Michigan alum here too. Graduated 2009, go blue. I just bought my 2006 Cayman S and pick it up tomorrow. If you know of any cruises or anything around Ann Arbor, let me know. This is a great local question for those of you that are in the Southeast Michigan area. I don't know of any cruises that are specifically for Porsche Caymans or Porsches. However, I highly recommend going to the Cars and Coffee meet that takes place at Zingerman's Roadhouse, and that's every third Saturday of the month. Starts at about 7:30 a.m., get there early, get a good coffee, look at all the cool cars. Everybody there is super friendly, and I'd say about half the lot is Porsches. If there's anybody that's going to know about track meets, cruises, that sort of thing in that area, they're going to be at that meet. Lastly, I got a comment from Summit Auto Lab. Thanks for the shout out on your description. I have more Cayman videos coming, don't worry. That's awesome. I really like this guy's videos. And I especially like the fact that they take place in Utah, which is, in my opinion, the most beautiful state in the country. And if I could just pack up and move there and money wasn't an issue, I totally would. And I'll say this again, I recommend Summit Auto Labs if you're looking for more detailed how-to videos when it comes to DIY, oil changes, spark plugs, things like that for this generation Porsche Cayman. The guy that's on their channel is much more adept with his DIY mechanical skills, and I'm trying to get to that level myself, but I don't feel comfortable doing a video describing how to do that sort of thing yet, because I'm sure I'll screw it up. So go check out his videos, keep watching some of my videos. Let me know if you have any other questions, guys. I'm happy to do more videos like this. This was pretty quick and easy, and maybe I'll get more in a routine of doing this every month or once a quarter or something like that as more and more questions gather up. Thanks for watching, everybody. Keep your eyes out for more Porsche videos at this channel right here. Get a like if you liked it, subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.